Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get right into our intro. That's not actually what it's supposed to say. It's supposed to say automation sequences, the very basics. Don't worry, the information is accurate. But going to go ahead and get into this. Go see previous Monday marketing videos. I'm going to throw this into pretty much everything just so those who are tuning in for the very first time. I've been an author since 2008. I've been a business consultant for over 10 years. We'll talk about newsletters briefly, studies briefly, and then we'll just go right into the flow of the basic automation sequence I usually recommend people start off with because it helps them um, get things started when it comes to like autopilot, set it and forget it tactics. So a newsletter is not this. This is the 1990s version, and this is one that my local city sent out. It's just full of all sorts of stuff. This is what like Target and Walmart would send out, but not Amazon, as I said last time. So if you want more information on an effective newsletter and what it is not, then go watch the previous Monday marketing event. Most effective now needs to be based on your personality, as your business is going to be based on your personality. So not going to get into this a whole lot. Like I said, we can go into that later. Studies, again, email remains the most pervasive form of communication. 91% of people polled want to get promotional emails from companies they buy from. 66% of online consumers made a purchase as a result of email marketing. 91% of consumers check their email. Okay, so basically, if you want to read these studies, basically, email is still the best way to keep in contact with your customers, your clients, and your whoever's. Okay, automation sequences the standard flow that I suggest for most business owners. Okay. So people find your offer. We talked about this last time. If you're offering something for free as a way to keep people engaged, as we to get people on your newsletter list if they are not already subscribed through like a Calendly link or whatever, because Calendly will automatically, if you set it up that way, automatically subscribe people to your newsletter list. So they're going to get the offer. They're going to sign up. They're going to confirm their email address if you have that set up, and then they're going to start receiving your automation sequences. The first email has a link to your freebie. How many auto emails do you need? Basic automation sequence, I usually recommend between 4 and 6, and I will give you the idea behind that in just a little bit in each email for that. Otherwise, it depends on your goals. For me, my automation sequence has varied significantly. I started with 6, I moved to 24, I dropped it to 10 and then 8, and then now I'm still at that around that 6 to 7 number. Don't be afraid to test, and we'll talk about testing here in just a second. But basically, you want your automation sequence to do the bare minimum or the maximum, basically, of what you are trying to get out of things that you like. Okay, so sorry, let me start that over again. So there are certain things as a business owner that you want your automation sequence to do for you on autopilot that you find yourself doing repeatedly, like introducing yourself, telling your story. And so since I'm talking to financial coaches, telling the story of why you became a coach. If it's something that that you find yourself doing repeatedly, putting that into an email is a really good idea. Of course, you'll want to tell them in your first consultation with them that story again, because there's nothing more powerful than a face-to-face story. But having it in your email does the same thing. It helps them come to know, like, and trust you. So basically, it depends on what your goals are and what sorts of things that you find yourself talking about on a regular basis that can be an evergreen email in an automation sequence. And we will, in a future session, we will go more in depth into what exactly works for like an evergreen type of thing. So I'm going to give you a bunch of different suggestions on what you can use. Okay. And then anyway, so that's an aside, but let's go ahead and talk about testing things out. So testing is really important when it comes to your automation sequence. And so you're going to set up your first automation sequence. You're going to set up a bunch of subject lines. You're going to set up content, and then you're going to let that run for a little while, and you're just to see how well it does. And if you want to test out aspects, so you're going to go in and you're going to look in your numbers and you're going to see, okay, so this one's got an open rate of 50%. This one's got an open rate of 10%. This one's got an open rate of 25%. You're going to want to analyze, now, why did the 50% have such great open rates? And you're going to look at the format, the length of that subject line, all of the different things that you think might be contributing to it being opened frequently. and you're going to want to try to replicate that in your future automation sequences. But as I say here, don't mess with your current automation sequence because it will skew your numbers. You want to start a brand new automation sequence all from scratch. And okay, not from scratch. What I usually recommend is you replicate your current one. Then you go in and make changes to that. So if you know that a certain subject line isn't working, change it for something else to test to see if it would work better. And then start it anew, like all brand new, and set everything up so that they're going through the new automation sequence instead of going through the old one. And there's a lot of technicalities that will go into that. Like you'll have people later on in the old automation sequence who won't have finished that, and they won't automatically be started in the new one. And we can talk about that later, how to get through that. But basically, start a new automation sequence every time you want to test something out to make it so that you can see which subject line is performing best, which content gets people to act fastest or best, etc. So test things out, see what's working, see which emails get attention, see which ones don't get attention, and adjust your automation sequence moving forward accordingly. Give it time before you change it again after you start testing something new. And I don't know if you guys know what statistically significant is. Basically, you want to have at least 30 people go through it before you decide whether something is working or not, because that will give you a statistically relevant set of data to go off of. So if you are only having like 5 people go through, that's not enough information for you to know if something is succeeding or not. Okay, so your basic automation, the first email, your freebies. This one gets sent out automatically as soon as they join. And by freebies, I mean you are offering something free to people who subscribe to your newsletter list. So if you're a coach, like a PDF of top 10 side hustles, or top 10 ways to drop dead, or top 10 ways to get $1,000 emergency fund right away. Okay. So this one goes out immediately, like I said. You're going to have a link right off the bat to that free thing where they can download it or where they can see it. And then you're going to give a very short introduction to yourself. It's going to be 1 or 2 sentences. This is not your story. This is, hey, my name is so and so. I live in such and such place, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you over the next while. You can mention if you have kids or whatever. Just very, very brief, most important things about you that does not involve your story as to why you became a coach. And for those who are not coaches who are watching this on YouTube, basically just a short introduction to yourself. And again, not your why you started your business, just who you are. Then you're going to tell subscribers what they can expect. So if you email often, if you swear, if you use too many smiley faces, which is something I've been guilty of, you're going to also ask a question. Pretty much every email you send out, you want to end with a question because you want to get people engaging with your content and responding to your emails, because the more often they respond, the more likely other people will see your emails, because the different email providers like Gmail, Yahoo, etc., will recognize that you are a legit person, a legit company, and they will make sure that your email is getting delivered more often. So ask a question here. What do you want to know about your subscribers? You could ask, I mean, you're going to need to sit down and brainstorm. If I brainstorm for you, we could be here for 45 minutes. But sit down and brainstorm something that you want to know the most about the people who are on your list. Your personality, but light. You don't want this email to be too long, okay? So we're going to keep this email pretty brief. And yeah, so the whole purpose of this email is to get that freebie to them as quickly as possible so that they can start reading it and start getting to, yeah, like receiving value from you, basically. Okay, I've talked about that last week. So you're going to give them a direct link to unsubscribe, and then tell them you'll check in soon to make sure the downloads went okay. Okay, so the second email is a follow-up, and this one's also going to be pretty brief. You're going to send this one 3 days later. You're going to ask them how the download went. You're going to give them the link again. So the download could be a link to a private website or a private blog that you have. It doesn't matter what it is. Just ask them how their access to that went and give them the link again. A lot of people will not receive the first email, but will receive this one. And that's why we do a follow-up email. You're going to introduce yourself a little bit more in this. And you know, a little like maybe where you, like, if you didn't talk about earlier, where you live, maybe roughly your age, what you've been doing with your life, just stuff like that. Just a very, very basic introduction to yourself, just building onto what you sent out last time. Okay, so then you're going to talk about the freebie, and make this personal. So if there is a reason why you created that specific freebie, so maybe like coming up with their $1,000 emergency fund. So you're going to talk about why you created that. Maybe talk about how difficult it was for you to come up with $1,000. Talk about the ideas that you put into it and how it applies to you, how those ideas apply to you. Sorry, I had to get a drink there really fast. Make it personal to you, because then it makes it a little bit more personal to them. Basically, what is the story behind why you chose that freebie? Ask them what they think so far. So if you've started reading or implementing, what do you think? That is the question for this email that I would recommend, just to get them engaging into the free content, because this is how it usually goes. People will be excited about that free content, and then only like 25% of them will actually go and open it up, and of those, download it or whatever, and of those, only a small percentage will actually start reading, and so you want to draw them back to that free thing. Get them reinterested in it, and, reinvested into it. Okay, tell them again that they'll hear from you soon, and the next email, I call this the Connect Elsewhere email. This is 5 days later, and this is going to be, again, more of an intro to you. And each of these intros are only a few sentences long, a couple sentences long. Talk about the freebie if you didn't finish in the last email again, because that last email should be pretty brief. Then ask a question. What is something you struggle with when it comes to money? Um, just or whatever you feel would be appropriate for this. And then you're going to invite them to join you on your social media account, whichever account that you're spending the most time on. So if it's X, then invite them to follow you there. If it's Facebook, invite them to follow your fan page or join a group that you've created. Facebook groups are really great, because if you get people engaging, they do show up. That content does show up more frequently than a Facebook fan page would. But you can't run ads to a Facebook group yet. So I know that they've done that in beta in the past, where a couple people were able to do it, but it's not widely available. And so there's like benefits and drawbacks to both. Um, Anyway, so you're going to invite them to join you on social media, the place where you spend the most time. So if it's a fan page, then invite them there, a group, whatever, Instagram, anything that you use the most and where you want your business to be based. I don't recommend you invite them to more than one place, because the more you divert their attention from one thing to the next, the fewer responses you're going to get. If you want them to follow you on a different place, have that be a separate email. This is the point of each email, is to give them one thing to do, not a whole bunch of things to do. And it's going to be ask a question and follow you, ask a question or click on something. Those are the main things you're going to be doing. Alert them to the service you offer. So you're going to say, in my next email, I'm going to tell you more about my coaching practice. Or in my next email, I'm going to tell you more about the next book I'm going to sell, for those of you who are authors who will be catching this later. Okay, this is the selling email. This is the one where you ask them to fork over cash, basically, or you ask them to commit time. This is 7 days later. You're going to continue your introduction, or you're going to tell your why for becoming a coach, your story. And I don't know, for those of you guys who are coaches who are on this call, if you've heard this before, but you want you to be able to tell your coaching story, your why, in like a 30-second interval, or and a 2 minute, a 5 minute. You want to practice telling it at different speed, different amounts of times, so that you can fill appropriate amounts of times where you are going to be wanting to tell that. Basically, if you are meeting with somebody as on a consult, 30 seconds, and have it be the most poignant elements of your story. And that's the thing that's going to end up in this email, is that brief, powerful story that you've practiced. Okay. If you are an author, tell your wife you're becoming an author, your story. You want to get people engaged in your story, basically, why you do what you do. And then you're also going to give testimonials. And these are going to be short, one, maybe two sentence blurbs that are enthusiastic, reviews, whatever, working with you. And if you're just starting out as a coach, then it's going to be, it could be you reach out to somebody who knows you really well in an area of expertise that is fully related to what you're doing, and have them give a reason why they would work with you. And you want it to be punchy and enthusiastic and short. Okay, this is where you're going to give a link to Calendly to sign up for that free consultation. And if they are on your list because they went through a consultation already, you can invite them to sign up for another free consultation. I know that works for a lot of coaches, or you can sign them up or invite them to sign up for an actual coaching session. Um, I want to stress here, this is something that people don't the more free stuff you give out, okay, there is a fine line between offering too much free stuff and not enough free stuff. The more generous a person is with the knowledge they have, the higher chance they are that people will trust them. And so there's a line between, I'm helping them too much and they're not going to ever pay for services, and giving enough value for them to feel like they trust you and that you're the person they would go to for help. And that's going to be, you're going to need to figure out what that line is for you, but I don't always agree, and I know that, way we are trained is one free consultation, but sometimes people need more than one. Sometimes they need two, and especially if it's been months since the last time they had a consultation with you. And so sometimes it takes people, like, especially if somebody's high C, and for those who are listening, high C is somebody who's very cautious. They need a lot of questions answered, and they take time to make decisions. Like my husband, he takes a very, very long time making decisions because he has to investigate every single variable before he jumps in. And so some of your subscribers, some of your people who've done a free consultation, they might be high C where it just takes them a little while to gather enough information. And so in this case, you can offer to do another free consultation, a 15-minute, 20-minute one. Don't make it be like an hour. You don't want it to be a super time consuming thing. Or you could just make sure that your emails are providing enough value where people come to know, like, and trust you. And then later on, you're going to send out an email just like this, where you repeat your story of why, and where you give more testimonials, and where you give a link. And you can make your automation sequence be as long as you need it to be so that all of this is done on autopilot. Ask them what they'd like to work on. So that's the question that you would ask in this email. Okay, so this one is the last email. Well, there is another email, but we'll get into that in just a bit. Okay, asking for reviews 7 days later. If you've worked with me, if you've talked with me, you can link to Google, to your Facebook fan page or your Facebook page for your business. You can even ask them to write it up as a testimony for you to put on your website. This is basically where you give your social proof for people who are not as confident working with you. And not every single financial coach does this, but in my view, this is not something that should be overlooked necessarily. I think you need to have a reason for not having testimonials somewhere that people can look at, because it's people don't buy or sign up as readily if they don't feel like other people have done it successfully. And so if you show a testimonial or a review, then it more people will be more likely to sign up. Okay, so the last email that I did not put in here is a follow-up email that you would send months later, and it's just basically saying, how are you doing? How's life treating you? And this is assuming you have not been emailing them throughout all of that time, or maybe you are emailing throughout that time. You're just doing like a regular email that's not part of your automation sequence, but it's just a follow up, checking in. Like subject line could be like something like, I'm just checking in, whatever, where you ask them how they've been doing and to say, hey, just wanted to reconnect with you and see how things are going. When I've included that email, that sixth email, I get really good response rates to it, but I don't always include it, which is why it's not in here, because I generally email frequently enough where I don't need to do it, where I'm keeping updated with them. But if you know right now you're not going to be able to email on a regular basis, then you need to add that one in several months later. And I have explained why I feel like you need to be emailing at least every 30 days, because again, it causes problems on the delivery side if you are not. Okay, so I'm actually going to go ahead and stop screen sharing here. Hold on a second. I might even stop recording. Actually, I think, hold on a second. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, so Jake, you said 5 days after the freebie. Jake, did you want to unmute yourself and ask basically what you're asking here?
Yeah, so just clarifying, for each of the emails, you giving kind of like 3 days after, 5 days after. So for the third one, you said 5 days later. Is that 5 days later from the initial freebie email or 5 days later from the email before, which was the follow-up?
5 days from the email before. So
Okay.
the freebie emails immediately, and then 3 days after that is the follow-up. Then 5 days after that is the connect with people email. And so the reason I've done a lot of testing into this, and I found that this sequence works really great when it comes to timing. You want that first email to go out immediately, and then the second one 2 to 3 days, no more than 3 days, because you don't want people to forget who you are. And then 5 days after that. I know that wasn't your question. I'm just trying to fill in some blanks in case anybody else has questions about how often to email. 5 days later is again within a reasonable amount of time where they won't have forgotten you. Forgiven. I almost said forgiven. They won't have forgotten you. And they will they'll still remember you. You're still providing value. And then after that, it's a week later. And then the rest of the emails in the automation sequence are every week. If you plan on emailing once a month, then you're going to do immediately 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 7 days. And then after that, probably 2 weeks. And then after that, 2 weeks, and then drop to once a month. For your regular emails that you send out on a regular basis. And if you're going to not do regular emails on a regular basis, I would recommend having your automation sequence set up so that you have at least 12 months worth of material. And we will go into that in the next time where we'll talk about um, other content that you can put into other emails. Does anybody else have a question? I'm going to go ahead and end recording now. So those of you guys who are watching, make sure you subscribe, all of that stuff. And I will talk to you guys later. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and then we can just chat if we want to. Okay. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.